Hello, it's the Carp Gnome again, with part 3 about wild carp, Wildies. And this is about the pool in the woods. It's probably the most remarkable pool I've fished, one of the most remarkable. It's very private, it's very remote, surrounded by oak trees and beech trees, with a long heritage going back. And the carp here are remarkable. They define to me what an English heritage carp can be. And again, king carp have been stocked into that water, but I personally don't believe there has been much interbreeding between the king stocks and the king carp and the wildy stocks, and in fact the king stocks are now quite rare. You don't catch many king carp in that pool. What you do get still are the beautiful heritage commons. It's just a pleasure to fish there, hearing owls in the trees, even in daylight, the falling of beech nuts, the crackling of leaves, and these wonderful, wonderful fish. I go there with friends, including Nigel Evans, and Nigel does very well there, stalking these remarkable fish off the top. I use a mixture of both float fishing and stalking on the surface, and I've done reasonably well there myself too. And we just wonder how big the fish might go. Not unusual to catch wildy type carp over 10 pounds in weight. My biggest there was 13.10 with a huge paddle on the back, and it was so powerful. The fight was remarkable, and that's another characteristic of wild carp, I think, which we haven't touched upon. They are usually pound for pound far more powerful than king carp. The battles we've had are quite remarkable. It's also remote, as I've said, and I think remoteness is often another factor when you're looking for your wildy waters. You're not likely to find wildy survivors in pools that are close to areas of population, and which have been run by angling clubs and stocked over the generations. You must look a little outside the box and find places which are remote, isolated, said to be haunted. It all adds to the magic of the experience. I think another point I'd like to make about wildies is that they seem to respond better to traditional angling techniques than the more modern approach. I'm not saying that boilie approaches, bolt rigs and so forth cannot and hasn't worked at this pool in the woods, but I will say that certainly large numbers of carp seem to fall for the traditional approach, be it floating crust, float fishing with luncheon meat or whatever, and that's interesting. It's almost that it makes you wonder if the methods that Walker developed for both kings and wildies in the 40s and 50s, that they are still valid approaches for carp in a natural or near natural state, that when carp are more cultivated, when carp are, if you like, even tamer than these carp, they're more likely to fall for pellets, boilies, whatever, because they're used to seeing them, because they are made semi-tame, because they're being fed that week in, week out. And personally, I think that makes hunting for heritage commons and fishing for heritage commons far more interesting. They fight better. you can use methods which are more aesthetically pleasing. A lot of my friends use cane rods. I don't. I use a mixture of carbon and fiberglass also, but I can understand why you'd want to use a cane rod at some of these waters, because they fit in so well. And a lot of my friends use centre pins, and again I understand that. I use Mitchell's, but there's something just lovely about using traditional tackle on these waters. It just makes it extra special. So my advice would be, keep looking. Don't be disheartened if there are kings in the water you found, because I've got a hunch that they don't interbreed quite as much as you might think. And if the carp are there to be caught, if they still exist, I mean the Wildies, the heritage commons, if they're still there and you can catch them, don't worry if the next fish you catch after that is a big fat mirror carp. It's all good fun, and fun is what fishing should be about. And finally, my customary plea: please subscribe to the Carping Gnome, because it helps us to grow the channel, and it helps other carp anglers like us to find our community. Thank you.